Anyway, we had 3 companies heading into '08. Thought we were almost retired, thought the Lord is blessing us. Look at us. Everything's going awesome. Everything's going great. Lived in a country club community, big old house, all the stuff. Everything looked like everything was as successful as could be. And then 2008 occurred and we knew it was coming, but it came and it took a little longer for things to play out, and we started getting behind on some things. We had over 100 pieces of real estate at the time, and almost all of them had some indebtedness to them. And they just need to know by 2000, and we were kicked out of and lost that home, and we were bankrupt. We moved into a Honda van and put the few things that we still had after getting rid of everything
Wow.
into a little storage facility, took off traveling, wondering, God, what are you going to do with us now? We don't know what to do next. And so that really, in many ways, started the journey that we're on now.
Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
All right, so here we are with Tim and Glori, not Gloria, Glori Winders. And we are so honored to have the both of you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here. We enjoy having these conversations.
Yeah, and we're so looking forward to digging into this. And so I'm going to just go right into this first question. You talk about, as I'm reading your bios and all that, talk about prioritizing faith, family, and then business in that order. And I was specific in that order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you always thought that way, or was there a before and after moment of how you view all this?
I'm going to jump in on this one, and then Glori can clean up.
Yeah, that'll be good.
The answer is, for her, it was. For me, it wasn't.
Yeah,
And that's part of the story coming along. We met and started dating, and she had kind of had a relationship with the Lord. Her father was a minister and different things like that. And so she was much more grounded, let's just say it that way. My God at the time was probably not the almighty dollar. It was just success in whatever the world system said success was. I was pursuing it at a pretty, heavy duty rate when we met. And I was a nice guy and all that, but we had this conversation, I think it was after we were engaged, where she asked about my faith, and I kind of made some flippant comment, philosophical, probably came from one of the classes I was currently taking in college, and I realized real quickly I think I said the wrong thing, so I had to kind of grovel and work my way out of that. But the bottom line is I had not really started my faith journey. I think the Lord was drawing me in. And so we actually kind of got on the same page a few years after we were married. And so I'll let Glori
I
share.
prayed him in.
There you go. All right, Glori, want to clean that up? Or
Well, I actually, I was going to break the engagement off, and he did a lot of backpedaling because I was like, I can't. I mean, they talked about church some, so I just assumed that he was a Christian. Anyway, but I have a journal when I was pregnant with our first child, and in it, I said, Lord, I want to be able to stay at home and raise this child, and I want Tim to be the spiritual leader of our household, our marriage. I want a Christ-centered marriage. And through the Amway business of all things, we got skewered and at a mall, and ended up going to a meeting, and Tim actually said, well, this is something you could do. And so we kind of got started, but at a business conference is where he got saved.
Really?
Yes. So it was crazy how God ended up answering that prayer through that business, because I was able to stay at home and be a full-time mom. And Tim got saved, and then when he got saved, he took off growing spiritually. And so I had to work to keep up with his spiritual growth. And that's been 34 years ago.
The other thing about the prayer journal, I want to mention this, and I don't know the exact time frames, but it was almost instantaneous that she journaled that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was kind of something that set us on a path. The guy that we ended up working with in that multi-level marketing business, we met within days, just cold. Within days of that, we met him, of her writing that in her journal. So prayer journaling works. If there's someone there who their spouse isn't quite where they quote unquote think they should be, pray about it.
Yeah. Wow. And then how did you, I mean, so there's always you've been in business, you've been in ministry, there's a lot of stuff going on, but how have you been able to maintain that, balance of that order, that priority, that proper alignment of faith, family, and then business, with all of that, how do you arrange that? So it works.
One of the things that's always worked well for us is a Sunday night meeting. And it's that Sunday night business meeting. And when you have children, it's after they go to bed. And then Sunday night, we would sit down. We went over calendars. If I had a lot of stuff going on with kids and I was going to need help, then, we would go ahead. I wouldn't be surprising him during the week with it. We went ahead and kind of mapped out what that week was going to look like. If he was going to be traveling or whatever, then I knew that too. I wasn't surprised by it. And we did that the whole time the kids were growing up, and actually try to continue to do that even when we don't have the kids. Now we live and work in the RV, and so it's more of a constant conversation. I mean, we have daily stand-ups basically every morning over coffee, and so we don't do that Sunday night meeting like we used to, but it was critical when we had children that had all kinds of activities and things going on. And then when he left corporate and we became entrepreneurs, it was really critical at that point for us to both know what the other one was working on, because we were both working in business together, and plus keeping the family. And then the other thing that we did to keep the faith top is we have coffee together in the mornings and we talk about what we're reading in scriptures. We will discuss scriptures together. We pray together. And so that has always kind of kept the faith at the top. And then we look at the family and then the business. So
I think another thing too, Robert, that's interesting. First of all, when you first asked the question, I'm glad Glori responded, because I was going to say, I'm not sure that we do it well that often, but we do it well often enough, I think might be and 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would have lit into, here's how we do it. Here's the 3 steps, and been extremely confident and all that. And I'm getting just less, I'm getting less confident in what I know now. Maybe I'm maturing. I don't know. But I do think one of the things that we have done, and Glori's always been great at this, she'll talk about how you need to study your mate. Study the one that God gifted you with. Don't try to change them or make them who you want them to be or whatever. God created them for a reason and gave them skills and talents. And Glori has always been one where she would study, and we would talk about this, study your mate. What are they really good at? What are some things they're not as good at? And that is when then we step in and we try to complete as opposed to compete. Unfortunately, I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to compete in a marriage, and it's like, hey, there's a microphone here. I want the microphone. No, you know. And so one of the things we've attempted to do, and we're still even doing this 35 plus years in, is identifying the things that I need to do and take care of, and then the things that she needs to do, and really understand the roles. And I think that's part of even the spiritual component, make sure that we know, number one, what our talents are, and then build those up as best we can.
Yeah. And I like the study your mate. That's going to be something.
Yes, they study me.
Here we go. Just opened up a Pandora's box.
And what's really interesting on the studying the mate thing, have you guys ever done the 5 love languages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that book.
So his top is my lowest, and my top is his lowest.
Right.
And we realize we can both get into loving the other one the way we like to be loved, and we forget, wait a minute, that's how I like it. Is not how he likes it. It did not say I love you to him when I just gave him a gift.
Right.
Mine is gifts. He hates buying gifts. Hates it. But and it's not that you bought me something, it's that you showed me you were thinking of me while you were out, or you were out on a walk and you picked a flower and brought it back to me,
Right.
His are words of affirmations and acts of service. And so when he washes the dishes for me, he thinks that is telling me loud and clear, I love you. And I'm going, thank you. That was really nice. I appreciate it.
You just wash the dishes, which we're a little bit out of whack right now because I actually injured my wrist. I don't want to tell you, I did it playing pickleball, I hate to say. And dishwashing and doing the laundry is part of my role. And we don't have an automatic dishwasher in the RV. I am the dishwasher. And so Glori, even the other day, she goes, I need this wrist to get better. She goes, we're a little out of balance.
Would you hurry up? Yeah, would you hurry up?
Hey, Glori, get the prayer journal out.
I know.
Yes, we need to heal this. We need to get so your dishwasher can be healed and back at the sink washing those dishes.
Exactly.
Okay,
So-
Tim, I got to say, I think you need a better story.
Pickleball.
How you injured yourself.
Yeah, rock climbing's better.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Skydiving.
I was parasailing. I slipped on the pickleball court. No, it's not a good story. You're right. And I think my pride hurts almost as bad as the wrist does.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring up that story of the love language thing, because we just had this conversation with one of our clients just literally minutes before we got on, giving them that realization. It's like, no, you guys are completely opposite on love language, is you're trying to give each other what you want. And so, and the other funny thing is, ask Kaylee what her love language is.
What is yours, Kaylee?
All of them.
Yeah.
They're all
Equally?
great. I love
They
them
are.
all.
Equally?
I remember when
Depends on the day.
she asked me, or when I asked her what her love language was, she said time.
Mm-hmm.
Time and words of affirmation, like 1 and 2. She asked me what mine was, and I said gifts. And she goes, "Oh, mine's gifts."
Yeah, I
go,
thought that was
"Wait,
a good one.
I thought you said yours is time." She said, "No, I'm gifts." I go, "Well, how many are there?" So she's all,
Well, I have to admit, in our household, taking out the trash is very sexy. So when he takes out the trash, oh my gosh, I love it.
yeah. So we got to.
So acts of service too, right? Acts of service is yours also. You're right. Maybe she's the anomaly. Maybe she is all 5, and that's why you need to study her and learn from that, Robert, and say, okay, I've got 5 things I've got to be focused on all the time.
But Robert, you're the first person I've ever met that was also gifts.
Oh, really?
Really? Oh,
There's
I've met other people.
doesn't seem to be as many of us. I don't know.
Really? Huh,
But, yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Our pastor's gifts.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I know somebody else that's gifts too.
So it makes sense that, she does, talk about studying her mate. So Kaylee doesn't like to do the same thing over and over. So she never wants to do the same thing twice. So the fact that she has all 5 does kind of make sense, because she can't nail herself down on one thing. I don't want to.
Kind of get bored, It's like, oh, I want to mix it up a little.
So talk to us about working together. A lot of the people that listen to this podcast and even our clients work together. How do you do that well? Basically, that's I know it's a big question. It's very general, but let's start with Glori. How do you make the machine run?
Well, I think communication, number one. I mean, you've got to be communicating about what your projects, what your goals, what you are handling, what you need from the other person to get things done. Then I think it's also important to, take the roles of the business, because we wear so many different hats, but you kind of do need to clearly define who's wearing what hat. And then make sure that you've got time when you're not wearing any hats and you're actually husband and wife, lovers, friends, because sometimes you can just get into those hats and, he makes a comment to you as if he were a boss or what, the CEO to the COO, and it can cause issues if you haven't taken those hats off and been lovers. What else would you add?
I think one thing that popped in my mind when you said that, Robert, is that I think I'm finding at the stage we're in, and I wish I could maybe go back and redo some early on. I mean, when we were in business and we started the business that we mentioned earlier, I was still corporate. I left corporate. I started another company. Then we started other companies, and we've worked together in all the businesses we've done all along the way. I think I've always kind of had the mindset of hustle, hustle, hustle. And when I'm hustling, I'm running off of adrenaline.
Hmm.
And when I'm running off of adrenaline, I can have a tendency to be somewhat so driven that it kind of doesn't matter what's going on around me. And I am sure that I am not the only one that is this way.
Hmm.
And so, one of the things that we are attempting to do better, and this is a work in progress, just like everything else, is we're attempting to be at rest more. We're attempting to be rested, monitor our sleep and, what are we doing as far as our patterns and habits related to being rested? Because when I am less rested, I have a tendency to be a little bit shorter in my communication, which doesn't come across as very kind. And when I don't come across as kind, she's wondering maybe what am I upset about? And then we to go back to the love languages, we start reverting to not thinking about the other person's love language, but only wanting self-centered our love language to be ministered to. And so I think this is kind of an odd one. I know with the crowd that's listening in, I think we're at a time and place in culture and society where we need to be at rest. That's a spiritual concept. And then rested, which is a physical thing.
Hmm.
Just be rested. Be as rested as we can be, because I think it allows us to be the kind, nice spouse in person. I think we give a little more flexibility when
Yeah.
I know I do when I'm rested.
Yeah, rest is the one thing that we entrepreneurs forget and disregard.
Mhm.
And as Christians are people of faith, and not everybody on the show is, but still, one of the 10 Commandments is obey the Sabbath, which a lot of Christians think of from a spiritual element, but it's not just a spiritual element. It is part of that, but spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional.
Yeah.
Rest, that's when you recharge and all those things. And that's actually when your body grows, right? When the growing years, that's when your body grows. That's when your body repairs. When you break an arm, what does the doctor say? Rest, right? Don't use it. You should know, right? You got your pickleball injury, but you're supposed to rest it, right? You don't use it. You're not supposed to use it. And yet we just don't get it sometimes. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Rest is huge. And so all the things you talk about, as far as that and, communication and all those, establishing that great foundation to work together and live together and love together is great, because it helps you prepare for some of those things that hit you, some of those tragedies or turmoils or stuff, right? And you guys have a real background in real estate, and from what I understand, you were doing that through two. So anyone old enough, and I'm assuming most are old enough to know what happened in 2008, 2009 when it comes to real estate. So talk to us about that period of time.
Yeah, it was, I think, what is it, Dickens? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And we started some companies right around that were acquiring quite a bit of real estate. We're talking 3, 4, 5 houses a month. We were working together on that, and also working with some partners and some other people, some other family and things like that. And then I've always been wired to coach. That's just what I'm created to do. And so we started a coaching business that we all worked together on. I was sort of the lead in it, I guess, but we had all the support structures and all in place. Started a lead gen company. Anyway, we had 3 companies heading into '08. Thought we were almost retired. Thought the Lord is blessing us. Look at us. Everything's going awesome. Everything's going great. Lived in a country club community, big old house, all the stuff. Everything looked like everything was as successful as could be. And then 2008 occurred, and we knew it was coming, but it came and it took a little longer for things to play out, and we started getting behind on some things. We had over 100 pieces of real estate at the time, and almost all of them had some indebtedness to them. And so when things got tight, it started, anyway, business people probably don't need the details of this story. They just need to know by 2000, and we were kicked out of and lost that home, and we were bankrupt. We had gone through a bankruptcy, personal with business and all also. And so in 2000, we moved into, air quotes, I should do air quotes there. We moved into a Honda van and put the few things that we still had after getting rid of everything into a little storage facility, and took off traveling, wondering, God, what are you going to do with us now? We don't know what to do next. And so that really, in many ways, started the journey that we're on now. I do want to fast forward real quick. We do live in an RV now, but financially, we are in a better financial position than we have ever been, partially because we also watch what we spend. There's a lesson in that is probably communicative and marriage related and things like that. But that's where a lot of our journey started. And so, we were tested during that time, and I think Glori might can have some insight, but that's the highlights. That's the what happened. Glori can possibly give you some what all was going on behind the scenes, because it was
deep. Yeah, I'm sure there's some stuff going on right there.
You got the van. Did you just go on vacation and travel like road trip from when you were living on it?
We house sat, and we did professional house sitting, and so we would just go from one.
So you turned homelessness into a business.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, she says professional. We weren't getting paid for it, but it was a barter.
Place to live.
We would come in and watch people's homes, and we were staying in $1 million homes that we didn't pay for. We didn't pay the bills, didn't pay the utilities or anything like that. Most of them had a pet involved, so we were watching their pets. Yeah. And we did that all over the U.S. and also in Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
So while it sounds really, really rough, it was. I mean, there was some ugly things going on. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together at times, but yet we would be on the South Island, New Zealand for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And going, Lord, what are you doing here? And he was using the situation.
Wow, we had to pay thousands of dollars. That was our honeymoon. Our honeymoon was in the South Island, New Zealand. We had to pay thousands of dollars.
I want to meet some of his friends because I want to go house sit around the world.
There are actually there are websites that connect.
That's what I've heard.
People that want their house to be sat and their pets, and people that are willing to travel to go do it. And it's really big in Europe and Australia, New Zealand, places like that, because they holiday for 3 weeks or a month, not just do the little weekend vacations like we do in the States, or maybe we do that 1 week vacation. So,
I gotta look that up.
I've been wanting to go to Europe.
That's our next vacation.
Yeah.
That's our next 3 month
I want to go to Cinque Terre, but maybe somebody needs their house set and their pet taken care of. That would be perfect.
Got to get one in each one of the 5 towns, right?
Or I could take the train in between, but
So, go, Glori, please keep going. Like 2008, when now the whole thing happened, I'm sure it wasn't a pleasant time.
No, it was not. It was very stressful. We had a daughter that was heading to college, and a son that was about to, I guess he was a freshman in high school. And we homeschooled him, so he was there and knew all that was going on. So it was stressful for all 4 of us. But one of the things that was very, very interesting during that time, Tim, serial entrepreneur, he can go out on a walk and get a business plan and come back in and, let's start a new one. God just kept slapping his hand. He's like, no. Tim, even when it was getting, when we were losing everything, he was even trying to apply for jobs, he even applied for McDonald's and they told him no.
You're overqualified?
I mean, he was trying to do anything just to bring in money. And it was God was like, no, I will take care of you. And he literally did rain down manna on us. Even for us to get to, you say, well, you didn't have money, but how did you get to Australia and New Zealand? The day I went on to try to look at flights, because we had this offer to go do some house sittings, we got a round trip flight for $400, which was unheard of.
Wow.
And we were able, and at the same time, that money came in. So it was like,
Yeah,
okay, obviously God wants us to do this. So what we ended up doing with all this free time was we would sit in our living room for hours every day, studying the word, studying the word. He'd be reading stuff. I'd be reading stuff. Then we'd say, hey, I just read this. Do you remember ever reading this before? And then we would discuss back and forth. So God was growing us exponentially during that time. He was teaching us with the house sitting that we are stewards. That's all we are, stewards. Everything is His, not ours. And so we still today look at things as we're just stewards of this RV or stewards of our car or stewards of our business. God, what do you want us to do with it? So he taught us to be stewards. And then the other thing I think that I remember the day sitting in his office when Tim told me, I can't stall this anymore. We're going to lose the house. And it's probably going to be soon because I've been stalling and stalling and stalling. Everything in me wanted to rip him up one side and down the other. I wanted to rip him to shreds. I wanted him to hurt as bad as I was sitting there hurting. And I was hurting for me. I was hurting for the children. I wanted him to hurt. And the Lord checked me. He said, if you open your mouth right now, you will do irreparable damage. And what is more important, hurting him or your marriage?
Oh, wow.
And I kept my mouth shut, tears pouring down. And I'm sure he could look at my face and probably see she is not happy right now. But I did not open my mouth.
Wow. So
But
did you
had
have
we not spent those hours studying the word and growing, I probably would have just ripped into him and we might not be together now.
So did you not have any idea that you were going to lose the house, what your financial situation was until he told you?
I knew some of it.
We were communicating along the way, but we were also in this mode where we thought that God would rescue us and rescue us in the way that we defined it, not He defined it.
Yeah.
There's such an important thing. And listen, I want to make sure we say here, because I know there's business people listening, we are not in glorifying bankruptcy or business failure or, losing a house or anything. We are not in any way. But that was what we were doing in the Babylonian system, and that Babylonian system reared up and it got ugly. And so we had to deal with it in the way you deal with it in the Babylonian system. And that's nothing's good there. One of the things, though, Kaylee, that was going on was we kept thinking that something would happen that would rescue us. And we kept thinking it would be God, some miracle. And so while we were communicating about our situation, it probably, and because of my background in real estate, I know how that foreclosure process works. We lived there for a long time without making a payment, okay? And so the reason that she didn't know about that situation was she probably thought I could make something work, but that conversation was, I think we're done and we need to move on. Which, most men know that the security of a home is extremely important I think it's important for everyone, but definitely for a female. Yeah. And so all of a sudden I was probably the lightning rod for, okay, that's about to go away. And so that's because we've always been pretty good about talking about money, but maybe at times I would be a little overly optimistic. That's another challenge with entrepreneurs often, is that they always feel as if tomorrow they could get a deal or make a sale or do something that's going to change. And probably I was being wishful thinking, overly optimistic that we could continue that. And that conversation was probably let's literally come to Jesus during this conversation.
Yeah. So you laid out some important things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here, but this looks like you're just getting broken, torn off of all the, possessions and what you defined as success and all that stuff. You couldn't hold on to anything anymore, right? It had to be ripped off of you. Yep. And to get to that defining moment, and I don't know if you guys view that way, but that Glory, I think when you held your tongue, that was a defining moment, because it was like what's most important, right? And we never, a lot of times, we get in these arguments and these petty, that would have been a big issue, but a lot of typical couples arguments are pretty petty. I mean, this one was a bigger one. I grant you that one. But we get caught up in even those petty arguments like it's the most important thing ever, right? And here, this is a huge issue, and still it was what's most important. And so, how did you view that? Did you think, looking back, was that kind of like a little bit of a defining moment in your relationship?
There's a number of moments that we look at and say that was significant. And we believe that, obviously just, 10 plus years later, to sit here and share it with you, it obviously is something that we believe was a very pivotal moment, because had we gone down the other path, we don't know. We were both hurting. We were both in tough shape. I was probably dealing with a lot of shame and guilt and all, and was probably trying to keep a straight face. And she probably wasn't seeing a lot of emotion from me, because guys, we're great at showing emotion, right? And she probably thought he's not hurting as much as he should be, and that may be right. It may not be. It doesn't matter. Right. And so we look at that as pivotal. And then as time went on beyond that, we see other places along the way. That time we brought up just a second ago in New Zealand, where we were absolutely on the opposite end of the earth. And we were there in New Zealand, and we were still just pressing into the Lord. It was like some little shift occurred, and we realized that we needed to trust in Him. And I like to say it for me, because it rhymes with my name, trust in Him, not in Tim, because it's Glory. I don't know what she does. Well, she's Glory. You're around her and you're glorified. So it's all good. I just needed to maybe just step into that a little bit more. But then there's other significant times along the way where all of a sudden, some revenue came in, and we made some decisions with that. And then we made a decision to go to Bible school, and it's like the windows of heaven just opened up. And then so there were all kind of steps along the way. We really feel like we went from a really dry season to manna, where we just had little drops that came in daily.
Yeah.
And then miracle, where it's like, man, that's kind of a miracle, to then what we call stepping into a blessing, where it's like, wow, look at all this just pouring in here. And you know what? We're not going out and buying stuff with it. We're just kind of putting money away and doing things. And so did I capture that well? Did that?
You did. And one thing I would add is that we would not wish this on anybody, but we are very, very thankful and happy with who we became because of those trials. Because God couldn't get our attention any other way. So that's our fault, that we weren't listening and being more moldable. Yeah. We had to go through that to become more Christ-like. So
I tell people I do not think God brought the 2008 crisis on the world, but because it happened, He saw that as an opportunity to get a hold of Tim and to begin drawing Tim closer. Because I was fairly arrogant in the business part of my life. I believe that I had trusted the Lord in our marriage and for health and with our children and things like that. Like Glory said, I'd roll out of bed, have business ideas. And I do believe they were divine. I think God gave me a lot of those ideas. But then I would do something to the effect of, God, I got this. I'm sure you've got other things you need to take care of. I'll take the business thing and I'll go out and run with this. And He specifically told me during this season or after this season, He said, I'm not an ATM machine. Mm-hmm. He said, I give you those ideas because I do believe you got the skills and talents. And I believe someone listening knows they've got skills and talents, and they've been given gifts of ideas and witty inventions from the Lord. But God wants to lock arms with you and build that together, not for you to go off on your own and then come running back when you're in trouble. Yeah. That was one of the big messages that we got from that journey.
Yeah. Wow, that's huge. So now we are on the upside of that story, right? So as we start to wrap up here. Talk to us, Glory, about, what are you guys doing now? I mean, obviously you got the money to buy a home if you wanted to, but you choose to live it in this motorhome named Theo. I always thought automobiles were supposed to be a female, but Theo, anyways, it doesn't matter. But Theo, how did that name come up? But talk to us about what the two of you are doing, and based on what's transpired through your life, and how's God using you now?
Well, the most exciting part of our life right now is that we have 2 little grandbabies now. And yes, it's just awesome. Oh, we love it. So a lot of what we do is so that we can figure out how do we take time off to go, spend time with the girls. And like this summer we did, they call him T Diddy and they call me Glory or Gigi. I'm sorry. So we're T Diddy and Gigi, or T and G, which is also our names, Tim and Glory. So that works. But so we had T and G camp, and had both girls, 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, for about 10 days. And so it was nice that we're to a point now that we can kind of clear the calendar, move things around, work around so that we can do that. Tim still coaches, and he coaches executive and business teams, and then has his podcast. And now we're going to talk about coaching like they're coaching, because I've been saying we need to do something like this. And then I kind of do operations. I have always run our businesses. And then for a period of time, the Lord actually had me in Silicon Valley working remotely, but I was working with a Silicon Valley company as basically a chief of staff for the chief financial officer and the chief product officers. And through that became a scrum master. So we do a lot of agile methodology and things and we translate that into our businesses as well. So some sprints and stuff. But just this last week, Tim has given me the freedom to be able to do something that I have wanted to do for a long time. If I had known I was good at this when I'd gone to college, I would have become a graphic designer. I love doing that kind of stuff. And so I like do his graphics and things, but,
Awesome.
so I'm actually gonna start a little Etsy shop with some t-shirt designs that are all encouraging. Maybe not everything full faith, based, but a lot of sayings that are just encouraging words and encouraging people in their faith. And I'm so excited about starting something new, but it's something that doesn't even feel like work to me to be able to sit down and do this creative stuff. So
That's fun.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and tell you,
Congratulations.
she's going to do great at it. I've seen some of the designs, and she's so methodical, but so creative. And one of the things related to that, Robert, we're coming up on our 60th year. And one of the things that we've been working on is our next 10 years. And we have so many people that we are around that are quote unquote retired, they're finishing up, and we will do it differently. I mean, we're not looking to get into the hustle and grind or anything like that. Like Glory said, we've got the most important thing is two granddaughters right now. But we are putting plans in place for what we're going to be doing for our decade, which will be our 60s. And it'll be business. It'll be using the knowledge and wisdom that we believe and hope that we've gained over the course of our lifetime, sharing that with others via podcast, YouTube, and T-shirts and other things like that. And so that's kind of cool that we're kind of really getting excited about some new things when we're about to be 60 years old.
Wow. I thought you were going to say 60th anniversary.
I did
And
too.
I'm like, when you say 60, and I'm like, no way.
no, 35. We're about to have our
35.
35th.
Okay.
We have
Awesome.
our 35th
wedding
35th in just a couple weeks at the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. That's great. And you've got, I know, Tim, you've got your book Coach, and Gloria, you've got Read Through the Bible. I was looking at that, the website. It's cool. Let's talk to us about that. I had some questions. How does this thing work? Because it's not a book, right? It's more of a guide okay.
So we use the Bible Recap, which is a podcast by Tara Lee Cobble.
Okay.
And they have everything set out with a chronological reading plan of the Bible. But for people that are not necessarily extremely techie, some of them have a hard time finding the podcast, figuring out where show notes are that she would link to other articles and things. I mean, I had all these ladies that were just having such a hard time. So what I've done is I've put it all in an email format. So once a week you get it. You get the links to the podcast, her YouTube, any articles, what you're supposed to be reading that week. And one of the things that is so cool about this particular chronological reading plan is that while you are reading Kings and Chronicles together, the same stories going on, you're also pulling in the Psalms that David wrote at the time that he is, if he's hiding in a cave, then we're reading the Psalm that he wrote about that. Or you're pulling in a book from, Ezekiel. We're in Ezekiel right now. So we're reading Ezekiel at the time that it was going on with Kings and Chronicles. So you're seeing the kings that were actually in power when he is prophesying.
That's a great idea.
And then when you get, and then when you get to the New Testament, my favorite part is that when we get to the book of Acts, we're actually pulling in Paul's books to Galatia, Ephesians, at the times that he's doing those trips. And so it's not like, the Gospels, then Acts, then you have all this stuff. No, you're pulling it in at the times that you're reading about it in Acts. And it just puts it in such a perspective that you're like, wow, okay, that makes so much more sense to me.
Yeah.
So I've just tried to take something that was out there and make it easier for people to digest it and use it.
User friendly. One of the things, I know y'all are all about story. I found I had spent almost 30 years studying the Word and studying topics and, scripture and things like that, and had done a read through the Bible multiple times. And this is specifically for the people of faith listening in. I found that I was not totally clear on the story of the Bible. And if I wasn't, I know that I'm not the only one. And I think it's very important for those of us that call ourselves followers of Christ to really grasp the story and don't just pull out a scripture and try to beat somebody over the head with it. Because the story of the Bible is amazing, but you have to do something like Glori's talking about to put all those pieces together, because it doesn't read just in chronological order. You have to put those pieces together. She's done a great job of making that work and kind of simplifying it for people.
Yeah, and it's one of our clients was talking about that. She'd want to do the Bible study, but she didn't want to just read through. But this makes a lot of sense, and I totally agree, because sometimes I'm reading Chronicles right now, and I'm like, did we just talk about David? Why is it all going like this? And I'm like, and I know even like Joseph, there's parts of the story gets choppy, and it's like the part 2 is like 6 chapters later, and I'm like, and there's another story in between, and then nothing flows like sometimes, and I'm like, what the heck? So, but this is great. Well, you got a fan, so I'm going to totally check that out.
And I will tell you something that will help too. I have a flow chart that it's for free. Just go to my website, Live Glorified, and you can download it. And it has all of the kings chronologically. And even when we split from the northern and the southern kingdoms, it shows that. And then we have it going on, and it will show the prophet that was actually speaking during that time. And so it's got it all kind of laid out for you chronologically, so you can look at it and go, oh, okay, so Asa was here, Jehoshaphat was here, and who was the prophet then? And it does kind of help.
It's a cheat sheet.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And Tim, you got your book Coach. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this book, at one of the toughest times in our life. In fact, when we were in New Zealand in a little camper van before we got down to the house in the South Island, I went to bed, I was reading some scripture, and we closed our eyes. It was a very difficult time for us. We were in New Zealand, but we didn't have any money really. We were kind of getting by to get down to this place that we had lined up. And I just got the idea for a story that was a modern day story, but it had some roots in some scripture. And so just almost as I went to sleep, I got the beginning, the ending, and a lot of the beginning and endings to the chapters. So it's actually a novel. And it's a novel about redefining success. And the word coach, there's a little bit of a play on words. I was going to name it counselor, but I don't think that has an application in today's world. And so after some meditation, it's titled Coach. And I'll tell you that as you do a read through, that you'll go, wait, was that the coach? Oh, wait, no, that's the coach. And so it'll be interesting. But it's really just an inspirational story. It's fictional with a lot of truth probably woven in. And I think it's good for anyone. But I'll tell you, Robert, it's probably geared towards the males that are in the roles like you deal with, I deal with, the hard chargers. They're going at it. They may have a faith component to their life, but they haven't quite integrated it well. And they probably have things out of balance and out of whack. This book's for them.
Awesome. Well, Tim and Gloria, it's been a pleasure to get to know you more and to just dig into your story a little bit. I know it's helped and touched so many people. So yeah, Tim and Gloria, thank you. And yeah, we'll look forward to hearing where you land next in Theo.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as you're listening, I know this has touched you because you're still listening. So share this with another entrepreneur couple that you know. There's more to life than just grinding out and doing business and making money. There's so much more, and really got to ask yourself what's most important, right? So thank you again to Tim and Glory. And honey, any last words?
Oh my gosh, you guys, take time to rest and have fun.
Yeah.
With your spouse and your family.
Yep.
So, all right, everyone, we'll talk to you next week. God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.